Okay. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. First of all, learning, we should have the basic Mikdash immediately. Okay, we're going to start today the new Masechta, Masechta Gittin. Hope everyone has the right volume. I want to start with hello. Hello. Okay, let's begin. It says, maybe get me Medina Sayyam. Someone brings a document from overseas. Get over here means a divorce document. So there's a discussion in Taisvas if get is not only used for a divorce document, it's also used for other documents. Do you have the right volume? Okay. So if someone brings a divorce document from overseas, needs to say that I was there, I was present at the time of the writing of the get, and I was present at the signing of the get. Now, in the Gemara, we're going to have a discussion. Why does he need to say this? Actually, the big thing here, what's happening is that we're not dealing with a husband giving his wife a get directly. We're talking about a husband giving his wife a get through a messenger. So the Masechta starts off where someone sends a get because the husband is somewhere overseas. He sends a get to his wife. So that messenger that's bringing the get has to be present at the time of the writing of the get. You can't just give the get to the mailman and say, bring this get to my wife who happens in Israel. The husband's overseas. You can't just give it to the FedEx or whatever, something like that. It has to be given to someone that was there at the signing of the get. It doesn't have to be the one that signed it, but he had to be present at the signing of the get. So, and the reason for that, the Gemara is we're going to have two opinions, Machlekes Rabba and Rava. Okay, possibly the reason why the Masechta starts off with the obscure case instead of just saying that a man gives his wife a get and they're divorced and what it has to say in the get, how he has to give it to her. It starts off with this obscure case, maybe because it doesn't want to start with something negative. Divorce is usually something negative, but here, thank you. But here the husband is overseas and maybe he's not coming back or something. So here, divorce may have like a positive side to it. Maybe that's the shot. Okay, so Medina Sayyam means he's from overseas. Now, overseas could mean overseas over the Mediterranean, right? Maybe from Italy or something. Or it could mean overseas. Doesn't have to actually be overseas. Could be from the west, from the east, from the east side. Could be Syria and Iran and Iraq and coming from Persia, right? From Bavel. That's also considered overseas. Now we're going to see later in the Gemara that Bavel happens to be an exception to this whole rule. But meanwhile, from a distant country. So if anyone brings a get from a distant country, that messenger needs to be more than a mailman. He needs to be there at the present. He needs to be present at the writing and the signing of the get because he's going to have to make a statement when he arrives. And the statement that he says is, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. He had to be there, he has to be able to recite that. How long does the get take where the guy has to wait? It takes an hour. He has to sit there for an hour and wait. It was written in front of me, it was signed in front of me. He has to be there for the whole thing. We'll see if it's mamish the whole thing or if it's just like the main point. Rabba Gamliel says that the Tanakama said, the first opinion of the Mishnah said only from a distant country. It said from overseas, which that means distant countries. Gamliel says it doesn't have to be so distant. Even from these two cities, Rekem and Cheger, the Targum, that's the Targum of the cities Kadesh and Bered, which is closer to Israel. You still need to recite B'fanei Nechtam, which B'fanei Nechtam is the term. front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. We're going to say that Hebrew phrase often. So he has to be able to recite, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. Even though he's coming from a closer city to Israel. The wife is in Israel. Rabbi Eliezer says, even from Kfar Ludim, the village of Ludim, to the city of Lud. Now, the city of Lud is actually the city that Rabbi Eliezer comes from. So there's a comment in Taisvis that maybe the reason why over here, you see, in all the other cases, it didn't say what city in Israel it's being brought to. Why doesn't it say where it's being brought? It doesn't say to Shiloh or to where was this, in Tiberia, where the Gemara, where the sages were. It doesn't say, to Tzipayri. It just says you bring the get from overseas. We know we're talking about Israel, so it's Israel. But all of a sudden, by Rabbi Eliezer, it says it's coming to Lud, because we have another Gemara that says Rabbi Eliezer lived in Lud, so he was using the city that he was from. Taisus rejects that though, but anyway, it's a nice plan. Afilu mikfar ludim lo Lud. Kfar Ludim, the Gemara is going to tell us, is this little village that's this area that is basically surrounded by Israel. It's outside of Israel, but the borders of Israel have like this loop, and Kfar Ludim is surrounded on three sides. Yeah, it's like a North Miami Beach with the garbage can stuff. So there's an area that's surrounded by Israel, but it's not Israel. It's called Kfar Ludim. So even when you're that close, that you're actually surrounded by Israel, and you still need to have the halachas of outside of Israel, which is that you need to be there, but the signing of the writing and signing of the get. And when you bring the get, you have to say that I was there at the writing and the signing. So it's not just basically, Tanakama says only very far away. Rambam Gamliel says even if you're close. And Rabbi Eliezer says not only if you're close, even if you're surrounded by Israel, but you're just not in Israel proper. Okay. Yeah. That's basically the next few pages of Gemara. Why is that? Hill is asking how, if this messenger is a witness that to the writing and signing of the get, why are we only requiring one? That's the following. That's going to be the Gemara for the next two pages. Okay, the sages say, the sages are going to add one thing that the Tanakama didn't mention. First of all, they disagree with Rambam Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer that the cities that are closer, you have to say, Fani Nechtam in front of me, it was written in front of me, it was signed. No, those cities are close, you don't need to recite that. It's much more lenient. However, when you're coming from a faraway country, you do, which is basically what the first opinion of the Mishnah says, the Tanakama. However, they add in, and they add in Vahamayla. They add in someone that's leaving Israel and going to a country overseas to bring the get to the woman, also needs to proclaim, I was there at the writing and signing of the get. The Tanakama didn't tell us that. They only said coming from outside Israel into Israel. Okay, now, if someone brings from one country to another country outside of Israel, brings from Miami to New York, some country means a state. He brings from France to England. So over there also, he has to say, in front of me it was written, in front of me it was signed. But it's not only if you're coming into Israel that we need to do this properly, that the messenger needs to be there at the writing and signing again, and then needs to proclaim that. It's any country overseas from one to another. Doesn't include if it gets conquered. I'm going to get the details of this. I'm ignoring the logic. I'm not explaining the logic because the Gemara is going to spell everything out. And when you get into the logic, you're going to see, like, the this way? Is it that way? Some details here. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Afilo me'agmunia la'agmunia." Agmunia la'agmunia means even from different jurisdictions. How do they translate agmunia? And I think there's an English word, hegemony. Is there a word hegemony? I think it's an English word, which is basically from this Greek word. One district to another district, which means he's adding in let's say it's talking about Medina Siyam. He's adding in that it doesn't have to only be from one country to another country. It could even be from one district to another district in the same country. You still have to say Fani Nechta, Fani Nechta. In other words, there were different Roman officials that ruled each one of them. That's what it sounds like. Right. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer. Now we're going to get some borders here because we're talking about Israel, so we have to get some borders. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Mi Rekem leMizrach." From the city of Rechem to the east. Rechem was a city on the east of Israel. That's considered outside of Israel. Rechem kimizrach, and Rechem itself is considered outside of Israel also. Big discussion, how's that possible? We have proof that Rechem is really part of Israel. There's big thesis in here that discuss all of this. Maybe there's two Rechems. Ashkelon l'darim, from Ashkelon to the south. Ashkelon kedarim, and Ashkelon is considered the south, which means it's considered outside of Israel. Thesis, big questions. How could Ashkelon not be part of Israel? We have other proofs that Ashkelon is Israel. Okay. And Me'ako l'tzafin, from Akko to the north. Akko Kitzafin, and Akko is considered outside of Israel. Also a bunch of big questions over here that we have proofs that Akko is really in Israel. Maybe Akko is divided in half. There's two parts to Akko. So that's our borders. We have the northern border is Akko, the southern border is Ashkelon, the east border is Rechem, and the western border it doesn't bother telling us because that's the sea. So it doesn't need to tell that to us. Reb Meir says, Akko Keretz Yisrael Gittin. You just said that Akko is considered outside of Israel. It's not true. Regarding Gittin, it's considered Israel. There's other halachas as well. There's the laws of Trumas and Maasros. There's a lot of halachas. Is it Israel? Is it outside Israel? Regarding Gittin, Reb Meir says it's considered Israel. Hamevi get Beretz Yisrael, another case in the Mishnah. Someone brings a get from one place to another place in the land of Israel itself. He does not need to recite, in front of me, it was written in front of me, it was signed. Okay. That means he could bring the get, you could just give the get to a mailman. The person that's bringing the get doesn't need to say that I was there. Look at the signatures. It's a good get, and they'll be able to give the wife the get. So in that case, who's going to be the witnesses? So we have witnesses that signed in the get, and we also have witnesses that are going to watch the giving of the get from the messenger to the wife. They'll see it being given. What are you worried about? Maybe the husband didn't write it. We have witnesses that attested to the document. Yeah, there's witnesses signing in the document. Yeah, we'll see. It's actually this machlokes about that if you need witnesses in the document. Now the Gemara says, well, let's say the Mishnah says, let's say the husband comes and contests. He says, I never gave her this get. But what exactly is he going to contest? Could be he wants to make a problem. He wants her to be continue to be married to him. He wants to destroy your life. She shouldn't be able to remarry. These types of things. He says that you got a get? Then I never gave you a get. He could do that. If yeshav alayrim, then yiskaim b'chesama. We don't even have witnesses that say that they were there at the writing and the signing of the get. We're not concerned about that because we're going to look at the witnesses that signed in the get, and we're going to say, what are you talking about? That you never gave her a get. We have witnesses that attest to the signing of the validity of the get because they signed in it. How do we know that those witnesses are valid? We're going to compare those witnesses, those signatures to other signatures. So we're going to bring people in and say, do you recognize the signature of this person? And basically like notarize it. We'll be able to notarize it even after the giving of the get, if the husband would come and say, what are you talking about? This is not a real get. Okay, that's the Mishnah. The Mishnah starts out with a whole discussion about a messenger bringing a get instead of the husband doing the get directly to the wife. Okay, why is he sending a messenger? Because he's overseas. The Gemara says, my time, what's the reason for this whole Mishnah where the messenger needs to be there at the writing and the signing of the get? And he has to, when he gets there, he has to say, I was there at the writing. What is this all about? We're going to have two opinions here. Rabba and Rava. Rabba is spelled with a hey. Rava is spelled with an aleph. Rabba is going to say, because we're not sure that the document was written properly, so we're going to need to have a conversation with the messenger to say, now tell me, you were there at the writing and the signing of the get. Was it also done properly? Otherwise, the guy's going to say, look, I don't know how this was done. I was just told to bring this. That we can't do. We have questions about the validity of the get. We want to know that you were there. So Rabba says, became le-shma. There's one halacha of Gittin that we're not sure if people overseas really keep this. If they know this halacha, it could be that they're not doing it properly over there. So we want to have a conversation with you. Were you there at the writing and the signing of the get? The guy says, I was there at the writing and the signing of the get. And then there's going to be a follow-up question, which is going to be, well, was the get done le-shma? Le-shma means for the sake of the woman. Was it done for the sake of the man? Was it done for the sake of a divorce? In other words, we want to know that the get was not just a template that he got. The get needs to be written le-shma. Le-shma means for her sake. It says because of law, sefer krisis. He has to write it for her. That means that you can't write blank documents of Gittin and then just use it. You know, like they sell keychains in the Nancy and whatever. You can't just have already printed documents. The document needs to be written for this person. So outside the land of Israel, they weren't so careful about that. So when this messenger shows up and says that here's a get for Nancy, from her husband, you have to find out that it was written for Nancy, right? It has to be written for her. It can't just be a blank, a template. It would be possible if it was not written le-shma, right? Oh. Yeah, the way it's written is really for an English speaker. Yeah. Okay, that's the opinion of Rabba with the hey. The way you remember that is Yehei Shmei Rabba. It has a hey, it's Rabba. So Taisus mentions over here that why specifically do they not know about le-shma? What about all the other halachas of Gittin? You're just going to tell me that they don't know. So it turns out the way Taisus learned is a little different than the way we explained it. Taisus says is that they don't necessarily learn the drasha the way we had it. That le-shma, maybe over there they actually argued about if it really needs to be le-shma. No, it's really all the other halachas of Gittin. There's 100 halachas. Maybe all those other halachas they do know. And they know about le-shma also, they just don't accept it. They don't agree with it. The way we were explaining is that they didn't really know that halacha. And so when we're bringing a get from a country where they don't know that halacha, so we want to know that it was done right. Over there, we don't know, America, what do they know about halacha?
It's valid in their country. It's not valid.
So according to Taisvis, it's possibly that they accepted it because that's the way they learned. They didn't learn the same drasha. And in Israel, they didn't accept that. They had the drasha of le-shma, Allah le-shma. But Rashi was learning that they didn't. They're not b'nei Torah. Rashi says they just don't know the halachas. Yeah.
I mean, so Gittin that's performed without le-shma outside of Israel, it's kosher. The woman can get married in Israel.
No, it would not be kosher.
So the woman wouldn't be able to get
Right.
married in Israel,
Right.
even though she gets divorced outside of
Yeah, this would create problem. Yeah, a divorce outside of Israel would create problem. We're going to see some details. So.
When something's written in the le-shma, do they need to have like a bana, or you just can't and use it for a later time?
So yeah, I'm making an equal sign between those two things, saying that's synonymous. Written le-shma means that you can't use a template. Now, but that also means that it has to have in mind. You have to make a statement. When the person writes the get, he says, "Hareini kaisiv get zel l'shem." You know, like you say, "L'shem kedusha sefer Torah, l'shem kedusha tefillin." To say, "I'm writing this get for the sake of this and this man, this and this woman, for the sake of a Jewish divorce."
Question. Talking about le-shma, for high name, and saying that's specific. But up until this point, to me, always le-shma was l'shem mitzvah.
Right.
So, what was this paradigm shift? It's not a mitzvah to write it yet.
Right. Over here, le-shma doesn't mean for the sake of a mitzvah. Over here, because it says because of law, you have to write it for her. We learn it from a pasuk. You have to write it for her, which means it needs to be written specifically for her.
Isn't that part of the mitzvah? If you want to divorce a wife, you do it this way.
Yeah, but let's say a guy has two wives, and he has a get written. It's l'shem mitzvah. He wants to divorcing one of his wives, and it's for the wrong wife, and then it has to be written for her, especially if both of them are the same name. It's terrible. I don't know how he would get around with two wives with the same name. Okay, so far we've learned the pshat according to Rabba. Rava Amar Lafi She'enei D'Mitzuyim L'Kaimei. Rava has another concern. Rava has a concern that maybe someone's going to contest the validity of the get, and this guy sent the get from overseas to his wife. Someone is going to contest the validity. We don't know anything about the people overseas. We don't know their witnesses. We don't know this. We're going to say, okay, validate the document. How are we ever going to validate the document? We have no connection to any people over there. And so therefore, in order to get this running, in order to get this started, it should be a valid get. Before we start, we only have one person here from overseas, the guy that brought the get. Tell me right now, were you there at the signing? So we're going to notarize the get right now, immediately when you bring it. And in order to do that, we have to have the guy giving this testimony that I was there at the writing of the signing, because once he disappears, we're done. If anyone ever contests the validity of the get, we're finished. We have no way of ever validating. So Rava has a concern about the kiyum get, the notarizing the document, that it should be always valid. Okay, so there's two reasons why someone that brings a get needs to say that it was done le-shma. One is because two reasons why he needs to say it was there at the writing. One is because it needs to be done le-shma, and the other one is because we need to notarize it. Okay. Both of them are going to have the question, Hillel's question. Why don't we need two witnesses for both of them? Why are you relying on one witness? That's going to be my binayo. What's the difference between Rabba and Rava? Where says Zika binayo. There's a difference. Not only is there one difference, there's three differences. You can probably figure this out on your own. First of all, the first difference is dasu betray. Let's say it wasn't one witness that brought the get; it was two witnesses that brought the get. Now, two not witnesses, but two people that brought the get. Now we have two people from I don't know from where, from France that came to Israel, and they brought a get. It was given to two people to bring. So if they weren't there at the signing of the get or at the writing of the get, we're not so concerned if it has to do with validating the document, because we have two people from France. If anyone ever contests, we're going to tell them, by the way, on this get, you recognize the signatures, Philippe and I don't know, another French name, Philippe, Marie. Do you recognize these people? They're going to say yes. We have two witnesses that we have here that are going to. That's what Rashi says. Taisus has a question on Rashi. He says, "What are you going to keep them in a cage the whole time that that they're always going to be here. But anyway, this is Rashi learns this Gemara.
So far, it appears that the shliach could also be one of the eidim. Is that right?
The shliach.
Can the
Could he be
shliach
one of
be
the
one of the
eidim?
two eidim?
Yeah, theoretically, the shliach could be one of the eidim. I mean, from right here, we didn't see any different.
Okay.
Yeah. There may be a problem with giving too much. Let's see. There may come up later that there may be an issue with that. If the shliach himself is if the aid, one of the eidim is the shliach. Okay, second difference. Inami mi medina. So one second, I didn't spell it out. So if the issue is witnesses, so if two people brought it, so we'll always be able to notarize it. The shliach is the messenger. Yeah, the eidim are the people that signed on the get. So if there's two people brought it, so we'll always have people here to notarize the document. The person that the shliach doesn't need to say that he was there at the signing of the get. But if the issue is le-shma, did they do it properly? Then if two people brought it, so I don't care how many people bring it. You didn't tell me that it was done le-shma. You didn't tell me that it was done properly. You can have 100 people, but we still don't know. So according to Rabba, it would be invalid. According to Rava, it would be valid. Next case is Inami mi Medina le Medina B'Eretz Yisrael. Let's say it was brought from one country to another country in Israel. We're talking about where Israel is divided, and we don't have resources. We don't have access to people in the other part of Israel. So therefore, people don't travel back and forth. They won't recognize the signatures in that part of Israel, like the north and the south. So if it has to do with validating the document, then I need the person to say, according to Rava, I need the person to say, I was there. But if it has to do with le-shma, the whole Israel, even though the country is divided, but the whole Israel knows the halacha, and they did it properly. So according to Rabba, it's not necessary. According to Rava, it would be necessary. And the third difference is, Inami Baisa Medina, Medina Sayam. Let's say it was brought in France itself. It was brought from one place to another place in France. If it has to do with recognizing the witnesses, Rava's reason, so they'll recognize the witness. The guy doesn't need to be there at the writing and signing, because if we ever have a problem, we have access to people that would recognize the witness. But if it has to do with le-shma, was it written properly? We need the person to tell me, yes, I was there and it was done properly, even though it's in the same country. Follow? Okay, those are the differences.
A quick question. Today, I think of a get as always involving a based in. Was it not that way in the past? The reason for my question is, if it was that way, why not just have the based in that was involved, Makayim, the get, and
so that's what we're doing. When
where it was written, I'm saying, why not just have they based in Makayim it?
Oh, put a henpick, put a notarization on the get itself.
Yeah, and then you're done.
I guess it wasn't always done in front of a beis din. If it was done in front of a beis din, let's say they were doing a shliach sheni, one messenger gives it to another messenger, you lose the whole thing over here. Because the second messenger obviously wasn't at the how that works. But basically, you would need to go through that process where it was notarized before you pass it on to the messenger, else you lose out on that. Right, follow?
Yeah, but why would they notarize? Really, what they need is.
He's asking, why don't? I'm sorry.
Really, what they need is this.
Right.
Rabbi, could you mute everybody?
Yeah. Give me a second. Yeah. The Reb Naftali is asking that, let's say they wanted to get it notarized in the country where it's coming from. Would that also be good? So according to Rava, it sounds like it would be good. You just need to validate the notarization. We need to have. Do we recognize the signatures on the henpick? Right. Yeah. It may be another problem. Okay.
Well, isn't, just going back to the witnesses themselves, aren't they essentially saying without it being written,
Yeah.
Isn't this all redundant?
Yeah.
Even though we start off with the mission says we need it.
Yeah. The witnesses that are signing on the document are attesting to that. Now, the only thing is that I have a guy here that's bringing a document. Do we really know that this was really written for this woman over here? Maybe it was for someone else. Maybe this was just a blank, where they were practicing. Well, maybe it was
We put
signed
the
and then it
names
would have
down
been a
of
blank.
the individuals who are
Right, right.
So
So
you
we-
need a witness to the witnesses.
No, we wouldn't need a witness to the witness. You're asking that if there's witnesses on the document, then that should be enough. So they bring the document to Israel, and then in Israel, they say, well, we don't recognize these witnesses. We don't know who these people are. So we would have to validate the signatures of the witness. Now, if they only have one person, so if he wasn't there at the writing and signing of the get, you can't validate the witnesses with just one person. He has to be able to say that he was there at the writing and the signing of the get.
And if a man comes to Israel with a woman, they say, you're living together, how do you know you're married? And he pulls out his, she pulls out,
Right.
why is that? No, the truth is, for tax purposes, they never got married or whatever, and they just
Right.
pulled up.
Right. I guess over there we wouldn't have any reason to not believe it. They're living together. They tell us they're married. So good. So then we assume they're married. Here we have a woman here that used to be married, which we know. Now she's telling us that she's divorced, and we don't really have a valid proof that she's divorced. We just have a document that we're not sure if it's good.
Nowadays, I just came back from Texas, and all you hear these announcements in the airport is about human trafficking. So that
Right.
this woman under duress, she's
Right.
with him, doesn't really want to be. I can see now.
So
Sorry?
we don't believe her then.
We don't believe her unless if we know she was married, and then she tells us that she was divorced with this document. So we need to make sure the document is good. Once we know the document's good, then it's fine. Yeah, at least at the beginning. Let's talk about just the actual getting her divorced. We need to make sure the document is good. Right now, before she's getting divorced, we need to make sure that the document is good. Uh-huh. Right. You're talking about from the woman's perspective. Could be. Okay, let's take a look. Now the Gemara is going to discuss Hillel's question. Rabba, le-shma. We're going to ask on both opinions. But according to Rabba, that says that le-shma, that they're not experts in le-shma, that outside of Israel, and we need the people that are coming, the messenger to say that he was there at the writing and that it was all done correctly. Why don't we need two witnesses? Just like every testimony in the Torah. Gemara answers, oh no, you don't have to be concerned about that, because one witness is good when it comes to like kosher laws. You don't have to need two witnesses in the kitchen if your wife mixed up the milk and meat. You trust one witness for all the things. Who separated the chumas and maasros? Who did the shechita? Who did this? You have two witnesses there testing it. You have the sheichet. He says he did it. Okay. Maybe you have a mashgiach or something, but you don't need two witnesses. So here also, you don't need two witnesses. You have one guy that says that it was done kosher. The get was done kosher. Glatt kosher, right? I got glatt kosher get. And it's all good, right? It has a hechsher on it. The Gemara says, well, that's not exactly so, because you're making a comparison. It's not perfect comparison. When would we say that you can trust one person if you have a slice of meat? And you're not sure, was this piece of meat chaylev, which is forbidden fat? Or was this shuman, was this the kosher fat? They could look alike. Well, the layas chazak yisura. I don't have clear that there was any piece of non-kosher meat here. I just have a doubt about this piece of meat. So it could be it's kosher, could be it's 100% kosher, could be it's 100% not. So I would trust a witness to tell me, the mashgiach, I would trust him to say that, oh, this is the kosher one. I have no reason to assume otherwise, because there was no non-kosher meat here. Aval hacha, but over here, this chazak yisura deisishis. but you know that she was married. Now you're trying to tell me that she's not married. So that havidavar shebe'erva, that's a matter of relations and be'ein davar shebe'erva parchas b'shnayim. Anything that has to do with erva, has to do with marriage or something like this, you always need two witnesses. So really, the Gemara just told me two things and combined it into one. First of all, it's ischazak yisura. Ischazak yisura means assumed that it's in a state of being prohibited. Why is the woman prohibited? Because she's married. I mean, she's prohibited to everyone else. She has that assumption on her. She was always married all these years. And then a second point is that it's a davar shaber, but anything that has to do with marriage, you always need two witnesses.
I thought I saw that if you had one witness that saw the
A
act.
special exemption.
And that has to do with marriage.
Yeah. That we have a special pasuk for. But in that whole discussion over there about how many witnesses you need, we say that normally you always need two witnesses. Yeah, Dr. Stein is mentioning that by the Saita you only need one for if that saw the act. Rashi quotes the Gemara in Saita that actually learns that you need two witnesses because it says davar. We learned from monetary cases that you need two witnesses for marriage cases. Okay. So we're back to our question. Why are we going to rely on one witness that this get was done properly? And it's a matter of ischazak yisura. She's in a presumed state where she should be prohibited. Now we're going to say that one witness is going to change that. So the Gemara answers that Roiv B'kiyam. Actually, we made like this a whole big problem here that we don't know if they did it correctly. It's not a real problem. Most people outside of Israel actually know to do the get properly. They know how to do it. Okay, so then why do we require one? We're going to see in a second. And even Rab Meir that is concerned about minority. Rab Meir is always concerned about minority. We had that in Yavamas. He said that a child can't do yibam because maybe it's going to come out to being going to be a saris. He's going to be a eunuch. He won't be able to have to upkeep the namesake of his brother. Says, but that's so uncommon. Says, yeah, but Reb Meir is concerned about things that are uncommon. He's concerned about everything, even if the statistics are against it. But Reb Meir is concerned about that as well. So even according to Reb Meir, that may be concerned about those statistics that are not probable, but nevertheless, even according to him, Stam Sifri Dedaini Migmagmiri. The scribes do know how to do the Gittin. Even if we said already, most people outside of Israel know how to do the Gittin. And even those that don't, but that's not part of the scribes. The scribes themselves do not know how to do the Gittin, they know how to do it le-shma. So really, there's really no concern over here. So Hillel was asking that why do we rely on one witness? My answer is because we're not concerned. We don't even need any witness. So why do we require one witness? It says Rabba Nudatsha. This is a stringency from the rabbis. Rashi explains. It's possible that there was a guy that wanted to divorce his wife. And his name was Yosef. Wanted to divorce his wife, and her name was Yosefa. I don't know. So in the same city, there was another guy, Yosef, that had a wife, Yosefa. So the first guy was upset with his wife. He wrote a get. He says, you know what? Last night she made a good dinner. I'm going to keep her. So he throws a get in the garbage. He says, I'm not giving it there. The other Yosef comes around. Says, such hashkacha pratis. My wife burned the dinner last night. Here's a get. Says Yosef divorcing Yosefa. It's perfect. I saved money on the scribe. I have a get already written. The truth is that this get, even though it was written for properly, but it was never used. And so the guy may take it. So we want the person to say that, no, I was there at the writing of the get and I know all the details and it was written properly for this one, etc. So it's a far-fetched concern that the rabbis are going to require that it should be le-shma. Make sure that it was written for this exact woman. Right, exactly like the Seder Parsha, right? couldn't just have parchment erased in water and then just use it when cyclists showed up. You have to do it, write it and erase it for her.
I thought this was based on a pasuk. Earlier, we talked about the pasuk, that le-shma was based on the requirement of le-shma was based on the pasuk kisva.
Right. Right. It is based on a pasuk. And the only thing is that now what we're switching now is that we're saying that even outside of Israel, they accept what it says in the pasuk and they know what it says in the pasuk, and this really isn't a concern. So, and that's why we're relying on one witness. But why are we even requiring one witness? Because of this obscure case of maybe it got
That can happen in Israel also.
that could happen in Israel also. Yeah.
So in other contexts where there's a concern about this issue of identity, you add names. You don't do that in the get?
Tell me again, what was that?
I said with other staros, if there's a concern about confusion, you add names.
Yeah,
Then-
we're talking
then-
about that where he
then
said Yosef ben Shimon, and the other guy's name was also Yosef ben Shimon.
You add the grandfather's name.
Right. We're talking about a case where maybe they didn't add that grandfather's name.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where do they add grandfathers?
if there's two people in the town with the same name, they would have to go back and explain,
Do we do that nowadays? Because we don't really know.
I never saw it done. Even though it's possible that we have a lot of people that are, the name is,
Jacob.
or in the Lubavitch, there's a lot of Menachem Mendel's, Ben Yosef Yitzchak, and okay,
You can't get a get on eBay.
and then just use it, right?
I just wrote a get, I can't use it. Maybe someone else out there wants it. Yes, my wife's the same name.
You
That's
can't-
how,
Let's just say eBay, I is saying,
what bracha you say when you get something from Amazon? Amazon. eBay is same. The Rabbanan required that they validate the document. How do they validate it? By the person bringing the get has to say that I was there at the writing and the signing of the get. Tivia is asking this question, but in Israel, what this concern that Rashi is bringing up, that maybe the get was written, that would be in Israel as well. You have to think. I think there's a simple answer to it. Let me think it through. If it's this far-fetched concern that we don't really need two witnesses, the rabbis just made that you should have one witness at least to do this. Why didn't the rabbis also require two witnesses if it's a concern that the rabbis are telling us? They said no, because of we don't want the woman to be tied. Igun is a woman that's tied, that she's not able to get remarried. So we're allowing one witness to take care of this. Make it easier on her. One witness, one messenger can bring the get, make it easier on her, and we're going to just say that it's valid based on that. Gemara says, "Hi kuluhu," relying on one witness is a leniency. Chumrahu, that could turn out to be a huge stringency because if you would have required two witnesses and done this all property, the husband will never be able to show up and contest. Because if the husband contests, you say, "What are you talking about? We have two witnesses that were there at the writing and the signing. They heard you say, write a get for my wife. And now you're coming to contest." We would say, we would say the husband will come and invalidate it. But now that you said that there's only one witness that's bringing the get, and he's the one, so you're going to end up with one against one. The husband's going to show up and say the get's not good. You have only one witness that says that the get is good. It's going to be one against one, and so you're trying to be lenient on the woman, but in the end, you're going to end up with a huge stringency. She's going to be stuck. The get's not going to be valid.
like in Salt at the end, we said when one aid comes after another aid, and we've already established first aid doesn't count, only when they both come together at the same time. So if we believe this first aid, the fact that the husband shows up later, sorry, Charlie,
Yeah.
Wasn't that case when there was the
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, there's a very interesting discussion going on here. Dr. Stein is saying that if it would, although it's only one witness, but if we're going to accept one witness, then it's going to be one witness that's going to be believed. And then if the husband comes later, then we're not going to believe the husband because we already accepted one witness, and one witness is considered like two in cases where one witness is accepted. We're going behind that. We're going to, why are we even allowing one witness?
This is not a witness again. It's basically
To the validity, right? It's to the validity of the get, right? There is other witnesses that need to be signed on the get or need to see the actual get. This is just testifying that the get is kosher.
that it was delivered and it came from the source.
Right.
The
Right.
shliach has to be
No,
there at the
he's saying
signing.
nechtav or nechtav.
Yeah, but
So
that's
he
just
wasn't
that's
with
just
But
a
he didn't
testing.
sign the gap.
He's not the
it.
witness
But
on
he
the
saw
right.
it- He saw it being signed.
He saw it being signed.
Yeah.
sealed.
So it's like
Right.
three.
Yeah, but those two guys are not here.
The shliach and the witness, it can be different.
Right. Right.
The original.
Yeah, the two witnesses that signed on the get are not here.
I don't understand.
They live in France. There's one guy that's coming here that's not part of the. Yeah, maybe it's a courier. So this
And
type
how
of
can he
courier,
say b'fanai nechtav?
because this, when you need to send the get, the courier needs to stand by the get while it's being written.
Then he's a witness to the
Oh, then he's a
witnesses.
witness.
He's a
was
witness
third
to the
witness.
witnesses. Yeah, that's
So
what
he
you need.
was also a witness. It's just we don't put him on this.
All right. The Gemara answers like this. Maybe there's going to create a problem. That's what's the question. The Gemara says maybe they're going to have a problem because you only have one witness, and then the husband's going to come. If everything's good, it's good, but when it's a problem, it's going to be a huge problem. The Gemara says, since the master said, how many people does he need to give the get over in front of? Is there a ceremony, or is all this done in private? So it says there's a ceremony. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yochanan's view and Rabbi Chanina's view. One says that it's given over in front of two people. One says it's given over in front of three people, which basically means that in the town square, there's this news that so-and-so came from France and is giving this woman a get. He's about to do it. So, originally, he's definitely he knows that he's going to have to do a ceremony when he gets there. He's going to make sure that he has everything set up. So he knows that the husband was willing to give the get. He doesn't want to mess up his own reputation because he's coming to this country. He says, I'm going to have to make a statement in public when I get there. So I want to make sure that all of this is done right. If, chas v'shalom, the husband didn't really want to give the get, so he's going to make sure of that when he brings it. Okay, the following Gemara is going to be just a repeat of the same piece according to Rava. We just did this according to Rabba. Why don't we need two witnesses? We said because it's not really a concern, and we're going to rely on one. So, but maybe it will be a concern. We said no, we're not worried because he's going to have to do a ceremony. Now the Gemara is going to say according to Rava that was concerned about the validity of the witnesses, of the signatures. We're going to ask the same question. Why do you only need one witness? To validate a document, you always need two witnesses.
Rabba and Rava believe in the same thing, just different reasons.
There's different reasons for, yeah, I guess we'll leave it here.
The only concern is that the guys are undisputed, not that the actual debt is fake. To protect her afterwards.
Right.
because
Right, that the
once
husband,
got
right,
delivered,
right.
it's about, again, she can't rematch, she can't rematch.
Once it's delivered,
I'm not sure.
and it was done valid, so it's good. She doesn't even need to keep the document. Yeah, even if she loses the document, she's divorced.